This video is about the French campaign in Egypt. Napoleon's campaign in Egypt lasted from 1798 to 1801, but it should be mentioned that Bonaparte was not present during the second half of this campaign. Important was one of his generals, Jean-Baptiste Kléber, and on the British side, of course, the naval hero Horatio Nelson. Egypt at the time was part of the Ottoman Empire. To the background. France was a republic established in the French Revolution, and this revolution could be secured against the European powers during the war of the First Coalition. However, France and Britain remained in a state of war. And now a French conquest of Egypt would threaten the crown jewel of the British Empire, British India. Egypt was already an important trade partner of France, and a conquest of Egypt would have meant that France would have dominated the Mediterranean trade. There was also personal motivation for Bonaparte to go to Egypt. He was already a war hero and had massive political influence. But now with the Egyptian campaign, he saw a chance to increase his reputation and his chances of becoming the ruler of France. Egypt, as mentioned, was a part of the Ottoman Empire, but the actual power was with the base of the Mamelukes. Now, Napoleon left Toulon for Egypt on the 19th of May 1798. Admiral Nelson was ordered with his squadron to find the French fleet and attack, but at the start he had not a clue where Bonaparte is. Bonaparte took control over Malta, and Nelson, searching for Bonaparte, reached the eastern Mediterranean before the French. Bonaparte reached Egypt on the 1st of July, and he was aware Nelson is around, so I have to land my troops immediately without any delay. On land, as so often, Napoleon was successful in 2 battles and could gain the upper hand. But then Nelson struck back, and he destroyed nearly the entire French fleet in the Battle of the Nile, one legendary victory of Horatio Nelson. Bonaparte crushed a rebellion and then led an expedition, a campaign towards Syria to counter an Ottoman attack. But the Ottomans landed troops near Abukir, but as so often as well, they were defeated by Bonaparte, and now the French had control over Egypt. Anyway, on the 22nd of August 1799, Bonaparte decided to go back to France, and there where he became first consul, so in fact dictator of France, and left his army in the hands of General Kléber. The French had won a battle again, defeated the Ottomans in the Battle of Heliopolis, but then Kléber was assassinated in Cairo. That was a major setback. Now British troops arrived and they landed at Abukir, and the British and Ottoman troops pressured the French more and more. An important date is then the 21st of March 1801, British victory over the French in the Battle of Alexandria. Not too long after that, the French forces surrendered, but that was honorable, and they were brought back to France on Royal Naval ships. And in 1802, to give you the wider context, historical context, the War of the Second Coalition, the war between France and Britain, ended with the Treaty of Amiens. The rule of the Mameluke base in Egypt was broken and ended, but of course, the French were defeated. The Ottoman Empire retook control over the country. Anyway, the French were there not for long, but it was enough time to modernize the country, and Napoleon's reforms had a significant impact. Furthermore, there was no French supremacy in the eastern Mediterranean. The Egyptian campaign, however, enhanced Napoleon's reputation, and so he could become first consul, as mentioned, and it should not take too long that he would become the emperor of the French. Anyway, the French, or Napoleon's campaign in Egypt, was militarily probably not too important, but it was very important in the cultural dimension. Archeological discoveries were massive. For instance, the Rosetta Stone, which significantly contributed to decoding the hieroglyphs. That was Napoleon's campaign in Egypt in 5.